Happy National Poetry Month. Welcome back to our daily readings. Today, I'm going to be reading two poems by A A Milne. He is a very famous English writer who is best known as the writer of the Winnie the Pooh books. He has also wrote several poems, many of which appear in the Winnie the Pooh books, but the two I'm reading don't. He does write for children, and his poems are also children's poems. The first one that I'm going to be reading is called Come Out With Me. There's sun on the river and sun on the hill. You can hear the sea if you stand quite still. There's 8 new puppies at the roundabout farm, and I saw an old sailor with only one arm. But everyone says, run along, run along, run along. All of them say, run along, I'm busy as can be. Everyone says, run along, there's a little darling. If I'm a little darling, why don't they run with me? There's wind on the river and wind on the hill. There's a dark dead water wheel under the mill. I saw a fly which had just been drowned, and I know where a rabbit goes in the ground. But everyone says, run along, run along, run along. All of them say, yes, dear, and never notice me. Everyone says, run along, there's little darling. If I'm a little darling, why won't they come and see? The next poem I'm reading is Disobedience. James Morrison, Weatherby George Dupree, took great care of his mother, though he was only 3. James said to his mother, Mother, he said he, you must never go down to the end of the town if you don't go down with me. James Morrison's mother put on a golden gown. James Morrison's mother drove to the end of the town. James Morrison's mother said to herself, said she, I can get right down to the end of the town and be back in time for tea. King John put up a notice, lost or stolen or strayed. James Morrison's mother seems to have been mislaid. Last seen wandering vaguely, quite of her own accord. She tried to get down to the end of the town, 40 shillings reward. James Morrison, commonly known as Jim, told his other relations not to go blaming him. James said to his mother, Mother, he said he, you must never go down to the end of the town without consulting me. James Morrison's mother hasn't been heard of since. King John said he was sorry, so did the Queen and the Prince. King John, somebody told me, said to a man he knew, if people go down to the end of the town, well, what can anyone do? James Morrison, Weatherby George Dupree, took great care of his mother, though he was only 3. James said to his mother, Mother, he said he, you must never go down to the end of the town if you don't go down with me.